Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 88. I'm Tristan Jutra.
Oh, me? Okay, I'll go second. Oh, no,
it's me next.
Okay.
So it's me next.
We're going to go clockwise.
My name's Ged Smythe.
And my name's Jamie Reynolds.
We did it.
And this is 60 minutes.
That's right. I'm
See,
Morley
it's funny
Safer.
because you were looking the other way when you're like, I'm going to go clockwise. I'm like, man, no one's over there. Who are you talking to?
All right. Who calls Mike Wallace? I call Morley Safer.
I'll take
Who's that? Bradley, Dan Rather, Diane Sawyer?
I'm the maid.
I'll take Sawyer, yeah.
All right. So, as you may have noticed, we have a slightly different lineup than normal. Gray's still away at his undisclosed location. Will's still attending to some urgent family matters. Keep them in your thoughts. And Tasia is also away at an undisclosed location. But 2, maybe 3 of them will be back next week. We'll see. But we had the incomparable Jamie Reynolds with us last week, and he returns again this evening. And then, long time no see, Ged Smythe, all the way from fabulous Guelph, Ontario.
Thank you for saying Ontario and not Unterrible. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's great. Well, we were all terrible before.
Yeah, we were all thinking it, but
yeah, that's fair.
So we've got some fun stories today. We're going to start, as always, with a little bit of follow-up. Of course, once I get the screen sharing ready to go here. One of the stories that we've been following for months and months, it seems interminable. And of course, the intensity is ratcheted up in the last couple of weeks, has to do with Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. And
who?
Yes. Polymath serial entrepreneur Elon Musk of Zip2, PayPal, X.com, PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, Boring Company, Neuralink, and Solar City and SpaceX. Did I say SpaceX? Well, he didn't have enough to do. So we thought, throw one more thing onto the pile. Yeah. And what do you know? When your attention is so fragmented, and you have some success in some places, you think maybe you're good at everything. This, I think, might go down as one of the worst takeover experiences in history. Just it's been chaos. Nonstop chaos, one crazy story after another. Of course, last Friday we had, was it last Friday? I can't even remember. Friday before last, Twitter laid off about half of its staff. Arguments can be made about how well that actually went. But just in the last couple of days, they laid off another 5,000 contractors. Some people are guessing that Elon maybe didn't even know they had a bunch of contractors working for them in addition to their 7,000 employees. A lot of pundits in the industry basically feel that Twitter was very overstaffed for the number of active users they actually had. And they're not the only ones that have been laying people off. We've heard from Alphabet/Google. Facebook just laid off 11,000 people. And rumor is Amazon is going to be laying off a bunch of people too, as the economic storm clouds continue to gather and stray missiles end up in NATO territory and so we'll see what's ahead. So a lot of large companies are battening down the hatches, so to speak. And what a great time to be overspending for a problematic social network. So that was one story, laying off another 5,000 contractors. And then, of course, they all take to Twitter and other social platforms to gripe about how terrible it's all been going. There was the whole on again, off again paid verification scheme. You could finally get that blue check mark verification badge that you've wanted for so long. All you had to do is pay $8 a month. And then we were surmising a couple of weeks ago, it's like, well, this is great. It democratizes this. It opens it up to more people. And it provides a little bit of friction for potential scammers and whatnot. One of the things that we assumed, however, that they were going to do was have an actual verification scheme, where, like with some other platforms, like if you have a Facebook business page, for example, you have to share some ID with said company. But they didn't. It's just like anyone, just pay your $8 a month for Twitter Blue, and boom, you get a badge. It's like, that's not how that should work. Did you not think this through? And apparently one of the other stories that's come out is that some people tried to warn Elon that, that wasn't going to be enough friction for people who just wanted to cause chaos and mayhem and people who wanted to outright pull off scams. and they would have some instant credibility by having that blue check mark. So they didn't really think that through. So the latest is that apparently it's been put on hold again, and the new Twitter Blue service, which had been launched, better part of a year ago, didn't have the verification aspect to it. They added some functionality features for controlling your Twitter experience. But now it's, this is $8 a month that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, but it's relaunching on November 29th. So we will see if they actually add some real verification features in there. We had stories about fake Nintendo accounts, fake Eli Lilly. There was someone masquerading as Eli Lilly,
Saw that.
the pharmaceutical maker, basically saying, "Oh, insulin's now going to be free," and it actually affected Eli Lilly's stock. So
Huge.
it's just chaos.
Yep.
Now, Ged, how Twitterific are you?
I admit that I jokingly forgot Twitter was even in business, and apparently so did its profit statements for a long time, until a few years ago when there was all that craziness in the US. But I have a couple interesting thoughts on this whole Twitter thing. Number one, I love the quote, as much as I hate to admit it, in the first article about the people being laid off. There's a quote from Elon being like, "Why do we need 5,000 contractors?" And as somebody who does not work for a social platform, who admittingly does not understand the ins and outs of the business, my first response to that is, well, yeah, why would you need 5,000 contractors for a company apparently that does not have the ability to really make any money? And the second thing on the Twitter is the entire process has been interesting watching from an outside perspective, because Elon, for all of his crazy, has always birthed things. When it came to Tesla, when it came to Neuralink, when it came to SpaceX, those are things that only he really, he could do whatever he wanted. They were his. He conceived them. But then he goes out and he buys a social platform with an absorbent amount of eyes on it. What did he think was going to happen? like before, he could just tell everyone to flag off. Oh, Neuralink, you're going to stick something to people's head. Don't worry about it. Okay, well, all right, Elon, it's yours. Remember for a while he wanted to build a magnetic highway underground.
Oh yeah,
Elon, what about this? Don't worry about it. Forget about it. You're like, oh, okay, Elon, cool. Then he goes and he buys a social platform. Now he can't tell everybody to flag off,
because they use his own tool against him. And then he's been demonstrating a bit of thin skin and just suspending people's accounts for criticizing him or impersonating him. Mm-hmm. And that brings in the whole, you have to say you have a parody account, et cetera, et cetera. He's had some employees criticize him publicly. Of course, they're getting fired right away
getting fired on Twitter. He fired someone on Twitter. There's literally a thread of this. Someone jumps in and be like, should your blah, blah, yeah, you're right. They're fired. Literally fired them on a tweet thread.
To be fair, that's what Jamie does too, I believe, in his business.
Yeah, it's I've really heard efficient that way.
Yeah, it's very, very, very robust.
Now, Jamie, I know we touched on some Twitter follow up this year last week when we spoke. Any additional thoughts on these recent developments?
Well, I did a little bit of research on Elon and his kind of his MO, and what I was surprised to find out, Tesla, for instance, he did not found Tesla.
Correct.
He bought Tesla and then did his thing
very early, before they actually had a car.
For sure, but still, it wasn't. Again, this wasn't his brainchild. This was something that he took over and then made it into what it is today, or at least helped do that. But there was a germination there. SpaceX, I think it was mostly him founding it, but I think there's been a few businesses that he's created, but many of them he's actually purchased and then gone from there. So yeah, I think he just got too big for his britches. I think he likes the attention of being out in the quagmire of the internet trolls. I think
if only he was born in the U.S., he could run for president.
That's right. Yeah. So for me, it's kind of interesting to see him. I do wonder if there is some sort of long game. He doesn't seem to really care about the chaos. He's just kind of creating chaos and then wants to then pick up the pieces from there. So I almost wonder if this is part of his strategy is to actually, because he's not a dumb guy. So for him to think that what his Twitter verified, his blue check verified strategy was, oh, I'm just going to do this and it's going to create no problems whatsoever. I'm pretty sure he would have figured out that, yeah, there's probably some people going to cause some problems. So I figure there's actually a longer game here that we're all just too dumb to understand. But I still think it's a bad strategy, because I think that you're not really encouraging, well, maybe you are encouraging people to come see the dumpster fire that that Twitter has increasingly become. But I haven't noticed much of a change. I don't use Twitter for posting anything, for sharing anything. I don't find it engagement. Most tweets, I think, that most people send out just go into the void anyways. Nobody really pays attention except for the one percenters in essence. So I haven't noticed much of a difference, but I follow mostly news outlets and some personalities. But most of the personalities I follow, all they want to do is talk about Twitter and how awful Twitter is. So I don't really use it as kind of I don't live on Twitter as some people seem to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the possible end games there. One conspiracy theory going around is that he actually is just trying to bankrupt the company, and that he's got, big deal. He's a multi-billionaire several times over. But it still represents 20 to 25% of his net worth. Like, even when you're a billionaire, I'm not sure if you just want to set $44 billion on fire necessarily. That seems a little drastic. And then one variation of that is that he is trying to burn it down in order to rebuild it from scratch, and in his own vision. And we had talked in previous weeks also about how Twitter, or some of the Twitter tech, if any of it's any good, it might form a key part of a super app, which he would call X, because he still owns the domain x.com. And he said publicly he really admires super apps like WeChat in China, for example, which are very pervasive, and people run their whole lives through them, including doing bill payments and hailing cabs or ride shares and things like that. They're and doing messaging and doing other public social media and mm-hmm. So he has this dream that Twitter, part of Twitter could end up as part of X. And I think the closest thing we have to something like that in the West is kind of Facebook. Just mm-hmm. if you count WhatsApp in there and Instagram, and then Facebook Marketplace and Facebook groups, all the stuff there, but it's not quite as ingrained. And a lot of people have kind of been going off of Facebook over time as well. So yeah, the end game, if there is one, who actually knows? Part of it is just, it all seems so rushed and so chaotic. So it's unclear how much of it has actually been thought through, but maybe he's playing 4D chess and we're just here with our popcorn, seeing where it all lands. One change I have noticed, and it could just be the fact that I usually have several hundred tabs open at a given time. Twitter seems to be slower for me than usual on my computer anyhow. So I'm not sure if that's a function of the fact that they probably lost half of their engineers and their servers.
They actually fired all those guys. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing too. They fired some of the people that have either been let go or who have quit recently include some people in charge of safety and
child safety stuff.
Yeah, child safety, sort of governance, some important kind of things. So anyway, let's move on to another dumpster fire, which happened in the crypto world over the past week or so. It was breaking just as we were going live last week, so we thought we would save it for this week. And again, we're not going to spend too much time because our parents at home watching aren't super crypto nerds, but I did receive a message from my dad a couple of days ago saying that that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder of FTX, he reminded him a bit of the main character in the David Lynch 1970s movie known as Eraserhead. Something to do with the hair. So if you haven't watched Eraserhead, check it out. Oh, that should have been my pick of the week.
That should have been.
So just the real high-level Coles notes about the FTX situation. Oops. Oh, thanks.
Oh boy.
Well,
congratulations, you just bought crypto apparently based on voice control, and now Elon Musk owns your liver. Sorry about your luck. Yeah.
Well, at least crypto's in the trash at the moment, so we'd be getting a good deal. Dollar cost averaging. So high level about FTX. FTX is an exchange and a crypto exchange and a bit of a market maker as well, called clearinghouse for crypto asset purchases. They are based in the Bahamas. They have a very close relationship with a sister company known as Alameda Research that it was run by, I believe, Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF. A lot of crypto people use initials. His ex-girlfriend, I think she was CEO. There was definitely not an arm's length relationship between this the Alameda Research and FTX. Oh, sorry, and I think was it Alameda? They may have been the clearinghouse. Anyhow, so Alameda Research owned about $6 billion, I think, of FTT tokens, which is the utility token for the FTS exchange. So if you wanted to buy or sell any financial instruments on FTX, any crypto, you have to pay your fees using the FTT token. And this is a feature common to other crypto exchanges like Binance. They have something called the BNB token. And it's a way to create some liquidity in their own token. And those tokens can appreciate on their own over time. But the weird thing is that when you have so much of the worth of given organizations tied up in your own native tokens, it kind of raises a few red flags. It's like you're just making up funny money, right? Even more so than crypto kind of already
I was
is.
just going to say, other than the other fake money that doesn't exist.
I mean, we can talk about proof of stake and proof of work and how crypto is actually created. But in some of these cases, it's like an exchange can just create their own token and just like at a whim. And it's like it's its own kind of fiat in a sense, as opposed to actual fiat like regular sovereign currencies. So when this was disclosed, what happened was a fellow named Shangzheng Zhao? I can't remember how to pronounce his name exactly. CZ is how he goes. He's the founder and CEO of Binance, which is a large exchange originally started in China. They are the largest crypto exchange in the world, and they held lots and lots of FTT tokens. And they're like, this is not cool and possibly not ethical. We're going to dump our FTT tokens onto the market. So, of course, FTT tokens crashed in value, and then FTX value went down as a result. And then there started effectively a bank run on the FTX exchange. People started pulling their assets out, and there had been some news of some other potentially dodgy things happening between FTX and Alameda Research, and that in order to FTX had been using customers' funds to cover losses for the other company. And there's a lot of insider dealing happening that was at the very least unethical and possibly illegal. So CZ's like, nope, we're out of here. And then FTX starts tanking, starts kind of a run on the quote unquote bank, and things kind of go into a death spiral from there. At one point, CZ from Binance says, oh, well, you know what? Maybe we'll just buy you out. We'll rescue you, FTX. And this is another one of these fast moving stories. And then a day later, they're like, yeah, we looked at your books and thanks, but no thanks. So now FTX is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And the hilarity continues. And SBF, he has been seen, he was at some participating in some online gaming competition over the last couple of days as well. And other things have come up about his personal life, which may or not be relevant to the whole situation. Now, one of the angles to this story that I wanted just to bring into this is that, well, there's a couple. One is that whenever there are these big blow-ups in any kind of industry, let's say it's a Tesla catching fire, right? And people go, see, EVs are crap, they're dangerous, and so you end up with all these side stories that people like extrapolate to an entire industry. It's like, because FTX was shoddily run, a lot of people are saying, well, cryptocurrency is obviously a scam. Well, maybe not, but you can't assume that from this one thing. There have been a lot of scams facilitated by crypto, for sure. But there are other organizations, such as Coinbase, started in 2013, one of the biggest exchanges in the US, that have made a rule of following as many rules that were available and asking the US government to regulate them so they have some clarity about what they could do. And they've never gotten involved in offering high leverage trading for their customers, and they're very very transparent in a number of ways. So there are a lot of good actors in crypto, but they often get overshadowed by the bad actors in crypto. One of the other stories movements that kind of gets pulled into this is the whole effective altruism movement, which Sam Bankman-Fried was a big proponent of. And for those who aren't familiar with effective altruism, it's sort of an offshoot of utilitarianism, whereby people think you should, if you give your money, it should go to the place where it's going to do the absolute most good. If you take it to its logical extreme, you should really sell all your possessions and give everything to the poor. But there are organizations that have sprung up to help you decide where to give your money to, and the ones that they figure have the best record of being most cost effective and lowest management fees and all those sorts of things. So there's this whole quite legitimate movement out there, and of course there are people who take things a little bit far. And there is Sam Bankman-Fried was actually on an episode of Sam Harris's podcast. And Jamie, I know that you follow Sam Harris, and talking about this very thing. And Sam Harris actually had a recent, very update podcast just in the last day or two, kind of trying to explain, not disavow Sam Bankman-Fried, but he said he removed that episode from his app. But the podcast feed still had that episode there. But he wanted to make it very clear. And I think this is an important point, that just because this one individual was involved in something shady, it doesn't mean that everything this individual was involved in was necessarily shady or should be discredited. And with any stories that we see that come through, like whether it's 24-hour cable news or the internet, we always need to take a breath, because people are so quick to try and throw the baby out with the bathwater, come in with their hot takes. People are so cynical. It's like, well, obviously this effective altruism thing is a total scam, because look at this guy, right? And he'd been claiming publicly how he wanted to give hundreds of millions of dollars to these charities, and that was his life's mission. But he was just going about it in a way that's not shady, and because he's unethical in other ways, maybe the whole movement is trash. Jamie, thoughts?
Yes.
I realized I was talking way too much there.
Yeah, there was a lot. That was a big dump there, Tristan. So
that's my specialty.
I don't know if there's anything I can really add to that. I agree. It sounds like this guy, I don't know the inner workings of crypto. I just, it sounds like there's everything is fast and loose in many ways, which is not good when it comes to money. So having somebody in there who is comfortable being fast and loose, and maybe it's more of a power thing too, than almost in the with shades of Elon in there. The more power you get, the more chaotic you think life can be, and you can do whatever you want, and nothing will ever come back and bite you. But seems like this guy, money became almost something that you could just throw around, and this effective altruism becomes very easy when money means very little. You can just do what you want with it. And, hey, yeah, $100 million, who cares? I got billions. I can do whatever I want with it. So it's an interesting philosophy, but I think without proper fundamentals, things like this will continue to happen, and it will continue to color any sort of technology, any sort of systems, anything like that. It will take most people and turn them off of it. Even something like, with Bitcoin, a prime example of that in its nascent stages was, it was so volatile. People looked at it, they said, well, this is stupid, when it was at $800 a Bitcoin. And then eventually it got up to $50,000 a Bitcoin, and people still said the same thing, and it's gone down quite a bit. But
I heard it was just used by criminals and scammers, Jamie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, all that kind of thing, and that's any sort of technology like that. You're gonna have naysayers, and who knows the way it'll end up, how it'll end up being used, and how much hopium there is out there for it to become worth millions of dollars per Bitcoin. But yes, it just sounds like ultimately, I think the bigger picture is that all of these systems, all institutions, everything in the world is run by people, and people are imperfect, people are fallible, people are corrupt. And if you think that people aren't, that's part of the problem. You have to understand that if any institution, if it's run by people and not by some AI that has no need to be corrupt, then there's going to be the potential for that kind of thing to happen. And when there's so much money flying around unregulated in the Bahamas, it's worth taking a second look before you jump right in with both feet.
So that's our solution. We should just have the AI run everything, and we'll all be perfectly happy.
I've seen this movie. It's Terminator 2.
There you go.
So the co-founder of one of the arguably one of the two most credible cryptocurrencies out there, so one being Bitcoin and the other one being Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, basically echoed the sentiments of that previous article with the comment that automatically downgrading every single thing SBF believed in is an error. Don't be the guy who would have tried to cancel vegetarianism in 1945. Again, referring to the fact that Adolf Hitler was a vegetarian. So it's the same kind of idea there. Now, Ged, being a you're not, as far as I know, you haven't really dabbled so much in crypto and more sort of observed, it being in the news over the last few years. When you've seen stories like all the blowups that we've seen over the last number of months, we had things like 3 Hours Capital and there's been so many apparently BlockFi might be going down now too, because there's so many other organizations that were kind of tied up with FTX. But we saw the Terra ecosystem go up in flames or down in flames, as the case may be. I think there's one called Pegasus as well. There's lots of carnage. And, over the years, we've seen the stories about like the dark web and there's ransomware, which people use Bitcoin for, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of those things tend to overshadow the actual utility of cryptocurrencies, especially as regards cross-border remittances and, sort of self-sovereignty when it comes to one's assets. All you need to do is keep 12 words in your head and you can take your resources, your assets with you wherever you go. That's your 12-word seed phrase. When you have seen and ingested all this media over the years about these stories, Ged, even just casually, what impression have you gotten about crypto, and is that one of the reasons why you've stayed away?
Yeah, I mean, I've only dabbled in it very, very, very lightly, and to be frank, it was at the direction of Gray. But Jamie, I think there's no way that you could ever phrase it better than the way that you put it. When you put people in charge of something, there's a possibility that if you allow human beings to run rampant, things could be wonderful. However, statistically, they more than likely won't be, because there is a gross percentage of people that will take things in a negative path, and they will push the limits, and they will do things that they're not supposed to, especially when something we all hold so dear, whether we want to admit it or not, which is money and financial freedom, becomes something that just sits on a screen, and maybe we lose the value of emotionally. And I think the effective altruism and all these other things that people have tried to generate, I think they're phenomenal ideas. However, all it takes is a couple of those bad apples who have done a couple of things that they should not have done to take down what possibly could have been something very, very positive. I mean, when I first heard the crypto thing going on, I'm like, how can you make up something that doesn't exist and give it value? But then when I started hearing of a couple of these bigger guys, I mean, even someone who doesn't follow it has heard a little bit of it, of how they wanted to take these funds, take this wealth and start distributing it. As a human being, I go, this is amazing. Like, I mean, the 12-year-old in me says this is stupid. There's no way money can live on my screen. But if this can somehow take shape and the world can be a better place with it, then that's great. But we know that human beings aren't like that. We know that it's going to go down in a fiery ball of flame. I'll never forget when, I first heard from Gray, and I'm only paraphrasing that, like you just transfer it, you get all your money. They're not confined by all these regulations. I'm like, yeah, but there's another side to that. When you allow the Wild West to directly affect people's wealth, then you bring in the true intentions of humanity. And I think unfortunately, if we've learned anything in the last 3 to 5 years, that most of the true intention of humanity is not sunshine and roses. So as an outside viewer, I've found it really fascinating. how something completely digital has fallen victim to the human condition, if I'm being honest.
So in the current state of affairs for FTX, they've, as mentioned, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. They have more than 100,000 creditors, so that would be a bunch of their customers, of course. And there could be as many as 1 million creditors in those Chapter 11 cases, but good luck getting any of your money back. So SBF has been frantically trying to get outside investors. I think he's looking for about $6 billion to help make people whole again, and then create a path forward for the company after said restructuring. Unfortunately, late breaking news today is that there was a big hack as well, and a bunch more of FTX's assets went up in smoke. So it just gets worse and worse. But
yep,
there we go. Good time.
So what it is.
Now, another thing we could be doing, rather than helping people with effective altruism, we could be using our crypto gains to buy NFTs or non-fungible tokens, and sort of proof that, not everyone thinks crypto is a scam. Even large organizations like Nike are getting in on the NFT game. We haven't talked about NFTs in a while here on Momentous Live, but we did talk about the potential for a lot of brands to get in on it, especially those that hold a tremendous amount of IP or intellectual property. Think what Disney could do with NFTs, being able to sell limited edition digital collectibles for Disney stuff, Pixar stuff, Star Wars, Marvel, and so on. There are people who spend billions of dollars a year in total on things like digital skins for their characters on online games such as Fortnite, and there are things that you could purchase in Roblox and other metaverse type environments. But lots and lots of money is spent on digital assets in gaming. Now, there's been a bit of resistance from some of the traditional gaming forces. A lot of people feel that, crypto and NFTs are a bit of a scam and environmentally unfriendly and so on and so on. But some other players, like Nike in this case, going, maybe there's something to this, because human beings have this need to collect things. And I'm speaking for myself. I've got a lot of CDs, a lot of records, a fair number of movies. I seem to be having an increasing amount of old computers too that I have trouble letting go of. When I was a kid, I used to collect bottle caps, license plates, hockey cards. Now, a lot of folks nowadays don't have the space to keep all this crap. So, digital space is pretty much unlimited. So some people have demonstrated their desire and their willingness to spend money on virtual or digital goods, real money. So we have Nike here going to be dropping some virtual sneakers on us. So Gad, what kind of things did you collect growing up or still collect now? And what kind of things might you be willing to pay for in digital form?
Well, first things first, Jamie, when we do Tristan's Hoarders episode, I will fly out, because there's nothing more I would like to see than a whole bunch of Commodore 64s be like blocking in a kitchen while we dig through it, right? And then step on his bottle caps like Lego pieces. And just drop a lot of F-bombs.
I'm gonna swoop in and steal his Vectrexes before.
Nice.
So just in my own defense, when I was in grade 7, I did divest of my bottle cap collection and my license plate collection, but I hung on to all my memorabilia, and then I started getting into music stuff. So that's we'll have an episode of Hoarders for all that. We're working on it. We're working on it.
So I guess, what do I collect? I mean, I am a physical media buyer, so I do still buy 4K media when it is released. I do that not just to quote unquote collect it, although I will pay extra money for a steelbook. I do it for a very nerdy purpose when it comes to the depth and quality and the audio bandwidth and video reproduction. So there is a reason for it. My guilty pleasure, this is super nerdy. I like to collect and get a hold of leather golf tour bags.
Wow.
You know, like the big leather tour bags you see on tour. We have a really good relationship with Callaway, and the odd time we're able to get a hold of limited one-off stuff. I don't have a lot. I probably have 6. But Stacy's not overly happy because they're starting to sit on top of things in the basement. And I keep telling her that they're not mine. I'm just holding them for one of my really good friends, Matt. But I believe that she's starting to see to see through these lies. And then your follow-up question, what would I collect digitally? I'll be honest, I don't know if I would. And I'm
Digital
a massive
golf bags?
I'm a massive pop culture guy, like Marvel, Disney, all that stuff fires me up. I don't know if you would catch me spending a substantial amount of money on something that I could look at on my phone if I could just Google it.
What if they were rare, well, ultra rare though, and there's like limited edition, 1 of 10 or 1 of 100, and you're one of the very few people who paid too much money for that, so you could show it off and maybe use it as your Twitter profile or other places where they allow you to embed your NFTs?
No, because I can look up a replica of it on Google.
Yeah.
And whether I own that fake piece of data or I'm just looking it up on Google, I'm still looking at it.
Mm-hmm. How about?
Sorry.
No worries. I mean,
Jamie,
I'm
what is your take on this? Am I crazy? Am I like the odd man out here? Because I won't buy a Boba Fett helmet for $1,000 with them smoking a cigarette or something. I don't know what they would do.
So you will or you won't buy a Boba Fett helmet?
I would not.
You would not. Okay, but you'd buy a virtual one.
No, God, no. I would spend no money on this virtual
I
stuff.
guess it depends on what it is and what the reason behind it is. Are you a golfer, Ged? Do you?
Very much so.
Yeah,
I would hope so.
That would be a little strange if you weren't.
Yeah,
but I guess it's all about context, right? So I look at it, I think, wow, that's a pretty odd collectible thing to do. But I understand it based on having that context in your life. Yeah. I used to be a golfer, but I have no interest in collecting stuff. Then these days I'm more and more working towards a bit more of a minimalist lifestyle. I'm less and less about buying things or having things. I just don't find things really bring much to my life. It's all about experiences. It's all about relationships. That's really what drives me. So for me, I like to collect people, which is a little creepy, but that's kind of what suits me the best.
You should see his dungeon get. It's great.
Lots of change. Shackles everywhere.
My safe word is
but from looking at the NFT situation, I think we've had this conversation to some degree before, tangentially anyways. I used to be, a fairly big proponent of Second Life, which still exists. And we've talked about how it has a colossal economy still running in there. And they have the ability to create items which are exclusive. So it's not the same as NFTs at this point. You can create things that you can purchase as a 3D unit. There's ways of copying those things if you really want to get into it, but it becomes a digital Copyright Millennium Act, I believe it's what a DCMA thing if you do try and do those kinds of things. And there are people who will want something exclusive and to be able to show it off within their group of other avatars and say, look, I've got this and you can get one, but they're hard to get now and blah, 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 all this kind of thing. So there is, I think there is market for it, but it just feels like to me it's very, very niche. It's not something that's going to be a mainstream sort of thing. Personally, again, artwork, maybe sculpture or something again that I like. My youngest son's girlfriend, she's an artist and she's done some really beautiful paintings, and we've purchased some from art shows, a couple of small works of hers, and she's done a painting for us. And those are special and those are unique, and so those are nice pieces of art that are non-fungible. You can take a picture of it, but it's not the same as the actual piece.
You got to get it on the blockchain.
Yeah, but they have meaning. So again, I think this is just a way of parking money. It's value. You value it based on what other people think other people will value it as, these NFTs. And I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. There's no emotional connection to some of these collections, which you have with the golf bags and which we have to certain bits of art. And,
of course.
So it's a new kind of technology that I don't think has that purpose yet. And maybe it will at some point. I just don't see it.
Here's my concern. If somebody can digitally give you something that you can never touch, you can never feel, you can't experience the four senses with it, it's hard to make that connection with it. It also means somebody can take it away. Is it really ever yours? Like, I don't know how you can collect
I'm not sure if that's
something.
true.
And maybe not. I'm obviously kind of an outsider looking in on this. I wouldn't feel any real sense of ownership to it. And who knows? Maybe my phone dies and I lose it. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gets
Yeah,
locked out. My phone gets
fished.
stolen. It gets hacked.
Yeah.
All of my inappropriate pictures on iCloud are out there.
You could have fire in your house and your art burns up to a crisp. So there's those kinds of things that you can do parallels with in the real world. And I think when it comes to the NFTs, the idea is you are owning the concept, and that's really what it is. You're not owning a physical thing, you're owning a concept. So somebody can take and say, oh, I'm gonna take that picture of a monkey that you have an NFT of, and I'm gonna make an exact digital duplicate of it. Well, that's fine, but you can show it off to lots of people and that kind of thing. But if you actually examine the blockchain that keeps track of all the ownerships of things, you can see, oh no, that belongs to this person as much as that picture might be elsewhere. It's the same thing as, not the same thing, but it's a bit like going on to the museum websites and seeing extreme high quality pictures of photographs or of artwork, and then saying, oh, well, I can see that picture on my computer screen. So therefore, what's the point of having the actual piece of art? It's there, it's coming into my eyes. You know, I can see the texture of it, that whole kind of thing. I can't necessarily feel it and touch it, but you wouldn't anyways in real life. So does that make the original piece of art invaluable or non-valuable at that point? And I don't think it does. So there's a weird gray area of stuff going on there.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up, and my first thought went right to that wall, that frame TV that when you turned it off.
Yeah,
I mean they're beautiful.
It's great,
but that's a really interesting comparison. Like, yeah, they're beautiful. They look incredible. Does it devalue it? Does it give it more value? To know that it really exists? Yeah, that's a valid point, man.
Jamie, you could display your Nike dot swoosh sneaker NFTs on your Samsung Frame TV in your living room.
But the weird thing is displaying it, that is still not the NFT. The NFT is only the ownership of the blockchain address. And so that's all you're really owning. So because anybody can display it. I can just display the fact that I own it. That's all I'm displaying.
Right. But that's the thing, is there are certain apps, whether it's on a phone or otherwise, which are wallets. And when you're displaying it in your wallet, then that demonstrates that you actually own it. Then there's the other angle to some of these NFTs, what Nike's doing, whereby owning one or more NFTs will actually grant you access to certain exclusive events as well. And that's the sort of thing a lot of musical artists have been experimenting with a little bit. So there can be other value adds to the NFT ownership. Anyhow, the Nike dot swoosh goes live November 18th. And just as a little background, the global sneaker market is about $120 billion and expected to grow to about $196 billion by 2030. And there are lots of sneakerheads out there. I mean, it's not a world that I'm a part of.
Huge.
So that's what they're banking on, is tapping into a certain percentage of those people. And especially because there's such scarcity with certain sneaker drops. It's like, well, what if you could get a digital version? I mean, it's not quite as good, but if you don't have tons of money or if you don't have a lot of space, then this could be the next best thing.
And they do spend money. The sneakerheads. Oh.
What about golf bag heads? That's what I want to know. I've never even heard of them before.
It's a weird thing.
I think you had it right when you said kink. So, speaking of things that people are into, we're going to have just a quick survey of a few developments in the EV world. A few cars that have come to us. Some not really in reach of most of us, and some a bit more in reach. One is something called the Gymkhana, which is a specialty Audi EV. It looks like something out of Fast and Furious if people had like way more budget than they did in that particular movie. This is a drifting car, from what I understand, but it's all EV. Greg, do you have any, before I make a fool of myself, do you have anything to, any context for this whole Gymkhana thing?
Yeah. So this is actually virtually an exact replica of the original Audi Quattro, which really changed the game. years and years and years ago when it came to rally driving. So Ken Block is obviously this legendary gearhead. He recreated the original Audi Quattro, did it a total carbon fiber body, so it weighs next to nothing, obviously super rigid, and made it electrified. And this guy's obviously very well known for his Hoonigan 65 Mustang that has 1,000 horsepower. He did up a Mach E at 1,400 horsepower, and now he's paying tribute to one of the single greatest rally cars ever created by partnering with Audi. Audi's making a huge move in performance EV right now with the stuff that they have going on. So I was very excited to see this come out, because when I saw the shape of it, it definitely gave me a bit of goosebumps. This will never be available on the consumer market.
So this is something for a strata of society. Like, are they going to be selling it at all, or is this just like a one? So it's a one-off.
He builds them. It's just
Gotcha.
his. He also has a Ford Raptor that has tank tracks that he does in the snow. This is just for him. But this was really just about paying tribute to that Quattro. I want to say it's 1987, 1988, and it was a game changer back then.
So in slightly more accessible, but still not quite, we've got something called the Rimac Nevera, which is hit a top speed of 256 miles per hour to become the world's fastest production EV. The record was set on the 20th of October at the Automotive Testing Papenburg track in Germany, not to be confused with the Nürburgring. And it hit that top speed on that track there. It's because it's got enough length, 4 kilometers or 2.48 miles. The Nevera is a quad motor, 1,914 horsepower demonstration of electric absurdity.
Yeah.
And what can you tell us about this? Yeah, this is nuts in its own way. It's not a one-off. It's supposedly a production car. What does that actually mean in this case? Are you going to be able to go and buy one of these?
You will, but all of these manufacturers are only building them for one purpose. There is
bragging rights,
because we talk a lot about Elon Musk, but in my opinion, there is somebody who will do more for the world of car than Elon Musk ever will, and his name is Christian von Koenigsegg, and he is the creator of Koenigsegg, and they have the Regera. They have the Gymkhana, which is the world's first 4-seater hypercar. It has a 3-cylinder engine that makes 670 horsepower, and it has an electric motor. And they also have a vehicle called the Jesko. Now, the Jesko, Christian von Koenigsegg has said he can just retune to always be the fastest production car of all time. So you've got companies like Rimac in this example, who have put forth an obscene amount of money because they want to just temporarily be able to lay that claim. And it's obviously it's the world's biggest penis measuring contest. But you'll find that 3 months from now, Koenigsegg is going to relaunch the Jesko around that same thing and beat it. Because apparently this thing can be tuned however you like. You will find a market for these. They're going to make 5 or 10 of them. They're going to cost 11, 12 million US by the time they get here. If you want a Koenigsegg, they're about 3.5, 4 million US.
That's a deal by comparison.
Right. But yeah, I mean, Bugatti had the La Voiture for 12 million Canadian a couple years ago. I mean, this is not a market that we as normal human beings will ever see. You're talking about the top percentage. And it's funny because it almost brings back to a point, Jamie, that you made earlier about what happens when human beings get in charge of something. So like Christian von Koenigsegg has technology called free valve, which could legitimately change the internal combustion engine and give it a second life. But where he makes all of his money is in these crazy, crazy hypercars. But everyone's very focused on what he does in these, these crazy vehicles. So they're all kind of chasing him right now.
So in
Sorry, that's my nerdy car ramble. I apologize.
No worries. And slightly more, even slightly more accessible, we've got Lucid, which is a rival to Tesla, an EV car manufacturer. With it's had some pretty slick designs, but they've been pushing, 100 grand or 100 grand or more US. They've got a new model called the Gravity EV, which they started teasing as sort of an SUV,
This thing's insane,
7-seater. With
hold on, scroll back up and look at the good.
Well, we got a pretty
Lord,
pretty wide angle lens
Falcon?
we got there, of course. Yeah, exactly. Just put that into hyperdrive there. 670 horsepower. It's some pretty wild stuff here. And then, of course, they're also talked about revealing they've unveiled their less expensive Air models. So you're not going to get the glass roof with them, and you're going to have different sorts of materials. And these are going to be starting at more like 87.4, which is still a lot of money, especially in US dollars. But that's more in the higher end.
Scroll up a little bit. Scroll up a wee bit. I love that they're targeting a little bit down. They're targeting 500 miles a charge. And that's where these popped out at me.
Exactly. So they're going for the range, really looking to replace internal combustion engine vehicles. A lot of people still have range anxiety, but the ranges are starting to get up there. But you're still paying a pretty penny. This is like Model S territory still. Yep. So, looking at these sorts of things and then finding out other news, like Consumer Reports has had a story saying that from their extensive reliability testing over the years, they're finding actually hybrids are more reliable than gas-only models. EVs and plug-in hybrids still have their own issues, but the sun is slowly setting on internal combustion engine models of vehicles, and some places like California are going to prohibit sales of ICEs after, I think, as of 2030, I believe. Hybrid and plug-in hybrid seem to be a nice sort of bridge to pure EVs for those who still want a bit of security for range. Now, Jamie, I know that you've just come in, you have a newer secondhand vehicle at the moment, just like we have here. You're still in the gas engine side of things. What are you looking to see, either feature-wise, range-wise, or price-wise, for you to make the leap into hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or pure EV?
Well, I guess for me, I've never been a fan of new cars. So I just don't see the value in getting a new vehicle because you drive it off the lot, you lose 10 to 15% of its value right there. So for me, I think that's really what has to come into place is the used car market. And I don't think there's much of a used car market yet for electric vehicles. And I think once that starts to come into play, you get an ecosystem developed. And then that ecosystem will really drive, I think, a lot more. It will drive the market, the ICE market into the ground, and people will jump on board. The only thing with that, of course, is we're still struggling with the longevity of the battery technology and how long do these batteries last and what will be the replacement warranties of them for these companies that have promised certain things. Can they be replaced easily? And so I think that'll drive me. I'll just say, hey, if I get a used vehicle that's electric vehicle, hey, I'm all over it. And then my charging at home, I would have to do some modifications there, but still, I think it is the future. Absolutely is the future.
So there is a fairly robust secondhand EV market that exists now, but it tends to be for I guess, I don't know if you'd call them first or maybe second generation EVs, which tend to be have a lower range. So let's call first generation the General Motors EV1 from the 90s. But the second gen, let's call, say, like the Nissan Leaf, and the Smart has an EV version. Fiat has an EV version. We have a Kia Soul EV from 2016 that we just got almost a year ago now, that had a lot of life left on the battery, still a couple of years left on the battery warranty. But these tend to be the lower range models where maybe you could get 100, 150 kilometers, depending on time of year. And what we've talked about here on the show before is that's a great gateway drug for folks who are EV curious, but have concerns, but especially if they already have another vehicle. So if they're a 2-car family, we have got one car for it's a gas car for road trips, longer distances, or if we've got to haul a bit more stuff. And now this Kia Soul EV is the perfect city car. It's like it handles 95% of our driving, and we have a carport, so we're able to plug it in at home, and it does the trick for us. Like, I didn't think I'd want to get another front wheel drive car again, because we've been all wheel drives for ages, but all wheel drive EVs are quite expensive. So while we're waiting for the all-in-one solution someday, maybe again on the secondhand market, when those cars tend to filter down, as we've got the Kia EV6, which is one of the highest rated cars at the moment for reliability from Consumer Reports on the EV. And it's got its sister cars, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Genesis something or other, which I can't remember the name of at the moment. They're all on the same platform there. We'll start to see those come onto the used market, lease returns in between 2 and 4 years. We've got the Volkswagen ID4s as well, which have all-wheel drive models too, and are quite popular. Actually, our Kia Soul EV was traded in at a Capilano Volkswagen and here in North Vancouver, because someone was buying a Volkswagen ID4. So it's just like you say, Jamie, it's just a question of having those things come through the system. And when the right generation or the right feature set in EVs start to hit the mainstream for people, if they want something that's got a bit more range, in a couple of years, we'll start to see those come through. But there's still, for the last couple of years, there's actually been a fairly robust secondhand market if you're willing to live with that limited range. So our dealership is
spend the money.
Mm-hmm. Well, that too. Like, I'm with you, Jamie. I'm not buying a new car.
Well, even the pre-owned market. We purchased a secondhand. We purchased a 2018 Model 3 long range all-wheel drive in June, and obviously I could speak on that forever, which I won't, because it definitely has its positives, but it does have a couple negatives for sure. But the cost of the pre-owned market, like you mentioned, that Ioniq 5. Mm-hmm. To buy one brand new all-wheel drive with 400 kilometers of range is about $65,000 right now. But you can't buy it. You can find one that's a 2022 that has 5,000 kilometers on it, and they want $86,000 for it. Not exaggerating.
Thanks,
the
supply
money
chain.
that is being asked for these vehicles. Dealers aren't even selling them new anymore. They're as awful as this sounds. They're putting them on the road as a demo or a loaner car for 4,000 kilometers. They're charging $20,000 over MSRP because they can. That is unfortunately just the way the world is, and it sucks. Which is why I ended up in Fort Francis, Ontario, picking up a Mach-E a month ago, trying to find a way to get it home, which is very interesting. It's from the middle of nowhere, the very tip of Lake Superior, to get it back to civilization. But we've had our Tesla, and we do 95% of all of our driving in it. But there are definitely a couple of things here and there where it is nice to have a gas engine. And just to kind of tangent on kind of the one concern, I don't know, not to push back, but I don't know if it's necessarily a range thing anymore. Our Tesla gets 476 kilometers on a charge. I mean, that's really all you need. I think where the concern is that if you're going to take it on a road trip, how long do you wait? Do you got to sit and charge somewhere for 6 hours before you can keep driving, right?
Unless you find a supercharger, then yeah.
Yeah, and there's and in town, sure. I mean, we hit our first supercharger a couple weeks ago. We went from 6%, really low, to 60, and it was in 13 minutes. It was incredible. But I was also in a place called Norway, Michigan 4 weeks ago in a brand new Mach-E in the middle of absolutely nowhere, beside the town's generator, plugged in. We had to sit there for almost 3 hours while this thing charged. Do you know what you can do in Norway, Michigan? Nothing other than look around and think you're in New Asgard. So it's really about how long it takes to refuel, to recharge. Mm-hmm. Because as people, we don't drive as much as we think we do. We think, oh my God, I need a vehicle with like 600 kilometers range. No, you don't. You drive 50 kilometers a day, bud. Take a couple fires off, or take a couple logs off a fire. And charging at home is incredible. However, if you do need to charge. The systems are very good at getting you to a charge station, but they're not accurate at telling you how long you're going to have to sit in Norway, Michigan, or in Saginaw, Michigan, or in Bayview, Wisconsin.
And they're not necessarily that great at telling you if those chargers are still functioning as well, because that's a big problem. It's just the maintenance and repairs of those chargers on Electrify America.
When you pull into the courthouse with it, which is the only charger in town, and you hope it works.
And that there's not a lineup or someone there with a high capacity battery who's taking forever to charge it up. So
for sure.
Lots of logistics still to make people feel comfortable.
But it is cool. There's no doubt.
So before we get into our next quick little EV thing, can you just give us a quick teaser on this Mach-E story? I know you're going to be doing a video about it soon.
Yeah.
But so what is this? Is this something you bought? Is it a friend? So what is your quick Mach-E story?
Very quick Cole's notes on it. So I have a young friend of mine. He's 25. He basically just call him my kid. I call him Junior. He's been in my life for like 11 years, like a little brother thing. So he has a good job. He lives in Cambridge, but commutes to Hamilton. So he tried to put in an order for a Mach-E, and we were at the Miami race for F1, and he was looking at buying his first new vehicle. Saves his money. He's a responsible kid. And we looked at, he's going to spend, say, $700 a month on a car payment. He wants to buy his first new vehicle. But then he's going to spend about $700 a month on gas. I'm like, so your total output's like $1,400. Why not just spend $1,000 a month in your car? He's an electrician. Like, work will put in a box for him. He literally ran our charge station at home. Like, you're going to be $30 a month in just pure electric. So it was like, great. So we tried to order one out of the Cambridge dealership. It didn't work. I call around to Toronto. They want $10,000 over MSRP. Tried to call a dealer in Brantford. I'm not afraid to call him out. Who wouldn't sell the vehicle unless we had a cool trade. I mean, the kid drives a 2010 SUV. It's worth $30 in the gas in it. Like, come on. So we called up to Fort Francis, Ontario, which is, if you fly from Toronto to Thunder Bay, it's about 1,600 kilometers, and it's 4 hours north of that. It's 320 kilometers north of that. So it's right at the tip of Lake Superior. So I called them, and they said, yep, we'll sell it. You can dealer trade it to Guelph, or you have to come pick it up. We won't deliver because of all of the people exporting them. It's $4,000 to bring it back. Way too much. So we jumped on a plane, hightailed it out to Fort Francis, and we did a bunch of research before, and we drove from the tip of Lake Superior down to Cambridge, Ontario. It took us about 2.5 days. And I'm going to be producing the video. I took a bunch of footage in December. I'm going to try and make it as fun as possible. What an unbelievable adventure. The answer is you will not get stuck in the middle of nowhere. I can't say the same if it was a Tesla, though, as much as I'm embarrassed to say it.
All right. So that'll be our teaser for when the video comes out. We can.
Yeah. A lot of fun. A lot of carpool karaoke.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Somewhat less cool was a video that's been making the rounds the last couple of days. A friend of the show, Sam, posted this on Facebook, and it was a dramatic scene of a Tesla seemingly, experiencing uncontrolled rapid acceleration through the streets of a small town in China. And the video starts off with this Tesla. It looks like, is that like a Model Y maybe? Or is it a Model X? And it's parked at the side of the road, and then it pulls out, and then it swerves around a scooter, and then just like books it down the highway or the road. And, China being a pretty heavy duty surveillance state, was able to obtain all sorts of CCTV footage of this thing.
But was that a scooter?
Yeah, it's amazing
that more people through this thing.
Yeah, one car gets obliterated. It manages to swerve and avoid a few people, luckily, and then it ends up crashing into a building at the side of the road. And it's like, what is even going on there? And like we were alluding to before, sometimes when there's a story like this, people want to pounce on it and go, oh, see, like Tesla's crap, because, Elon's kind of fallen out of favor with a bunch of folks at the moment. So, Tesla's crap, or autos, they're blaming the ASC, the autopilot, the auto self-driving thing, technology, which is not necessarily being implicated here. This did not look like a self-driving error. What some people are saying that, you know, the issue with in a lot of these cases where there's rapid acceleration, this happened with Audi with the 5000 series in the 80s. It's happened more recently with Toyota about 10 years ago or so, where you had these rapid acceleration issues. I think it was with the Priuses. In most of the cases, it was actually driver error, where people were panicking and stomping on the wrong pedal, and then they were just doubling down when it was not working. Like whether it's maybe the footwear or just they're disoriented, they're having a neural event or what have you. And because you see this sometimes with old people.
A neural event.
You see old people sometimes smash into sides of buildings, because they're hitting the wrong pedal. It happened to my grandmother. She rear-ended someone because she thought she was hitting the brake. This was like 10, 15 years ago too, and she wasn't even that old. So it happens. So is this the case where someone is just like, they're just slamming on the gas, thinking they're slamming on the brake, wondering what the problem is? Or, because the way that these systems are designed, as soon as you take your foot off the gas in a Tesla, like there's all sorts of switches and whatnot, and it's not it's not supposed to it's not supposed to keep going. So anyway, it's complicated, but it's of course it's salacious, and it gets clicks, and it's dramatic. Any thoughts of what's going on here, Ged?
I mean, obviously, I want to open this up to obviously Jamie as well. Yeah. At the end of the day, there's data that can be investigated. This is something, obviously, I mean, if you read on, 2 people were killed in this. I mean, it's tragic. Mm-hmm. It's salacious, and it's wild for the internet. But I mean, let's call this what it is, which is an absolute tragedy, regardless of the circumstances, right? People lost their life in this, and millions of people are watching this, and there's music playing in the background. And I don't want to be the guy to be a party pooper, but human life has value, right? At the end of the day, they're going to be able to investigate. They're going to be able to inquire. They're going to be able to grab the raw data and find out if it was the vehicle itself or driver error. When I look at how crazy the steering wheel goes, how full self-drive and autopilot work in a Tesla, because I don't have full self-drive, but we have the autopilot feature. If you jerk the wheel to a certain degree, the system kills. So if you have your hands off the wheel for too long on autopilot, it'll warn you and then it'll turn it off. But if I change lanes or I move the wheel away it doesn't want to, it'll disengage that system that's working. So based on the video footage, and I've watched it a couple times, the way the car is moving uncontrollably, the Tesla system is so cautious, and it's too cautious a lot of times. It looks like driver error. It looks like somebody was freaked out and was having a moment, which again is tragic. But Jamie, you've watched it a couple times now. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I concur. It looks, well, you know what, ultimately, you just don't know. I think it's important to, you can't go one way or the other. If there is an issue with the self-driving, and who knows, there could be some actual issue. I think we tend, again, as people, just like to want to just make things explained. So if you're a technology person, you kind of want to not blame the technology. If you're an anti-technology person, you're going to say, oh, there it is, there's a problem. So I think like you said, initially it's about the data, get the data, collect the data, figure out what it is. This just popped into my head. It's not a great parallel, but it's almost like COVID. We don't really know. When I say
careful,
we don't really know what the long-term effects are, or what the long-term, or what the benefits of masking and all this kind of thing were. We have to kind of wait for another few years to look back on all the data and say, okay, well, here's what it actually was. So I'm kind of holding off my judgments and saying, well, you know what, it was what it was. I don't know what the answer is. Let's find out. So it's a let's find out approach. For this.
Sorry, this just in: Momentous Live has been canceled and scrubbed from the internet,
but now has a home on Twitter. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, but that's a good point. An interesting parallel you raised there, Jamie, and is that there's such a rush for people to get their hot takes on the internet, especially on mediums like Twitter, where speed is everything, and people want to be edgy and all that sort of thing. But important stories take time to evolve and for us to learn and to do the research and get the data. And something like COVID, do you remember it was like at least 3 months, people were wiping down their groceries because we just didn't know.
Christy did
right?
it for a bit. Yeah.
Because there was a lot of unknowns. And then as the data started to come in, we understood, is it aerosols or is it droplets? Oh, maybe it's some of each, like all the things. And then of course, people who are of a certain mindset, they just chalk the changing information, they chalk it up to grand conspiracies and whatnot. It's like, no, or maybe science as a process, and we don't have all the information quite yet. So it's a perfect. This is another case where again people are getting their hot takes and they're blaming X, Y, or Z. Let's just see what it is. I mean, it is definitely a tragic incident for sure. Apparently, there's about 16,000 rapid acceleration incidents per year I believe, just in the U.S. And most of those are what are known as pedal errors. So
Jeep for a few years, they had their gas and their brake really close together. I don't remember the years. I apologize. I want to say 90, early 2000s. And although it was driver error, they would clip both pedals with each and it would jump. So they actually moved their pedals further apart. There was another manufacturer that I was very, very close to that struggled with that in a manual as well. If you can think of a small vehicle that I may have an affiliation to, where they struggled with
almost a miniature type vehicle.
That's right. Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah. Where they had those three pedals stuck so close together that they started to move them a little bit too, right? Like it's something that's not uncommon. This one's very interesting because pedals are pretty far apart.
It could even be all-weather floor mats. Like if people put in third-party floor mats and they don't take out the original mats, sometimes they can get jammed up in the pedals, and that can cause. And so there's all sorts of warnings. We installed some in our vehicle, and there was all sorts of warnings. Take out your original floor mats before you put these. Whether or not we did, I can't say. But that's
100%. If it gets stuck, the accelerator gets stuck, and something latches on it, you can't get it off.
No fun at all. All right, let's get to something a little bit more fun. I think this is something that the three of us can mostly agree on. We'll start with Jamie on this. I'm going
to be contrarian no matter what it is.
Sure. We have 2 episodes left of Andor, the Star Wars series on Disney Plus. And the last episode, the episode we saw last week was pretty epic. We had some amazing acting from Andy Serkis and Stellan Skarsgård. Each of them had pretty epic monologues. And I think we can talk about what you've been doing on a weekly basis for a while with your pal Tyler. We'll talk about that in a little bit, Ged, and we've been singing the praises of Andor ever since we saw the first teaser last year, and the anticipation, and then it started finally happening. I think Gray and Will both been watching it. Tasia not so much, not really her jam, but the consensus from a lot of folks, especially of a certain vintage, is that this is like grown-up Star Wars. It's Star Wars stories that we've been waiting to see for a long time, and maybe the best Star Wars stories we've seen since the original trilogy. That may be overstating that, but at least since Rogue One, and this is a prequel series to Rogue One. Apparently there's there may be 2 additional seasons, so hopefully they're able to maintain the quality. Jamie, what is it about Andor you think is resonating so well with most people, aside from those who think it's slow and boring and maybe they didn't get past the first episode or 2?
Slow burn.
Yeah. What's the secret sauce here, do you think?
Well, I don't know if there is one, in the sense that, from what I understand, it hasn't gotten great viewership. So there, as much as we might enjoy it, having grown up in the Star Wars nascent stages and been children when this thing came out, it's got a certain allure to it that we'll give it a chance, even though we've been burned by that over the last number of movies. But when somebody takes the time to actually understand that there are really interesting stories to be told in that universe, and show a respect for, I think, some of the lore and for some of the characters, I suppose, and not just use it as
Now, Gad, you've been dissecting every episode of Andor since number 1 with your pal Tyler from Rogue Leader. But in the conversations that you've had so far, what is working for the two of you, respectively, and what might be the in your mind the problem in getting other people, non-Star Wars people, hooked into it?
I think when it comes to getting non-Star Wars people hooked into it, people need to forget that it's Star Wars. I think the reason why people our age who are open to just giving things a try love it so much is it was created by someone who's not a Star Wars fan.
Tony Gilroy
has come out and said he is not a huge Star Wars fan. However, he did write the Bourne trilogy. And when you look at Andor and you look at the tension that he's been able to create. So Star Wars for me has never been able to create uncomfortable action. They try and have dialogue and create depth, and then they have pew 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 pew. And I love Star Wars, so I'm not chirping them. Like that is what they do.
Yep.
And one thing I love,
pew pew
pew pew pew pew pew. Tony Gilroy has been able to create uncomfortable confrontation. That last episode was some incredible tense. I mean, I'm an Andy Serkis fan. The guy is Gollum, for Christ's sakes. I don't know if Andy Serkis has had a better moment than he had on that mic as Kino. Like I was blown away in that moment when it was happening. And I think it goes back to the writing. This is somebody who doesn't love Star Wars. He sees the story. He casted it obviously brilliantly, and he has been able to create a tense moment in a battle scene that had depth. And that is something Star Wars has never been able to do. So I think the reason why it's not getting a lot of praise and a lot of attention is because people like us have given up on it. And it is hard to imagine somebody giving it a fair shake who watched State of Play, the Bourne movies, Proof of Life, Bait, Armageddon. I mean, the stuff this guy has written is not small potatoes. And when you remove the fact that it's about a guy named Andor in the Star Wars universe, there's not much better TV property out there. That's my ramble on it.
Also, he's the mind behind the underappreciated Michael Clayton starring.
I was actually, that's the one I didn't mention, but yes. Yeah.
That was a movie I really enjoyed in the theater back in the day. So it's got that, it's kind of getting it from both sides. There's people writing that Star Wars, the traditional Star Wars fans have been burned by, previous movies and TV series that maybe
Mhm.
didn't quite meet their expectations, whether it's Book of Boba Fett. There's mixed feelings about Obi-Wan Kenobi. And of course, there's the prequel trilogy. And then there was the sequel trilogy as well, which
Mhm.
they were uneven at best. So I think then there's people who are just kind of burnt out. And then on the other side of things, there's people who just aren't Star Wars people and don't think it's going to be for them no matter what, not
Yeah.
realizing that, in a lot of ways, it just happened. It's like a spy thriller. It's got 50s and or 70s spy thriller vibes. It just happens to be set in the
100%.
Star Wars universe. And that's one of my favorite genres of movies. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I have the benefit of getting it both ways, whereas some people have neither benefit, and maybe they don't realize what they're missing. I have a friend, a longtime friend and colleague who watched half an hour of the first episode, and then she's like, I'm out. And we were like, we almost had to bully her on Facebook because her husband was like, loved the show so much, and she just wasn't in. And then finally, we had enough of us online, just like, I had this whole for some reason I felt really strongly about it. I wrote practically an essay to her about what I thought that the magic was behind it.
Mhm.
And then eventually, I guess her husband badgered her enough as well, and she gave it another chance, and she loves it. Because you have to get through those first 3 episodes, which kind of have their own story arc, and they seem to be these 3 episode
I
arcs.
love the arcs. Yeah.
And that's why they dropped 3 initially, right? But some people just don't have the patience because there's so much to choose from nowadays. So why would you
and
bother?
They're so disappointed and jaded from the other stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
which is too bad.
I consider that a personal victory, my small part in bringing that person back into the fold. And then because there's just the cinematography, the music, the acting, the storytelling, of course, important, the writing. It's just, it feels grounded. It feels people are making real decisions. People are imperfect. The empire is humanized because it's just a bunch of people doing their jobs, kind of like the Nazis, right? And of course, some people feel like people love it because, oh, look, it's talking about fascism. Fair enough. Yeah, that's what they've been talking about for decades now. But now it's in a more adult way, and we don't have like fuzzy little characters or like an excess of CG aliens to distract us. That's the thing. There's very few aliens who have prominent roles in here, and of course, some people think it's not inclusive enough, and that's like, oh god, no. That's a whole other conversation. I'm sure Jamie loves that stuff.
Going on?
Oh yeah, totally.
The my favorite factoid about Andor, period, and it's dumb, is that in the first few episodes when they're on Ferrix, when they shot the scenes, they actually had the orchestra on set. So they didn't dub audio over. They had music playing. And so you can watch some of this. There's actually a thing on it on Disney Plus where they talk about it. And a couple of the actors are like, it's so easy to get into the vibe because everything is happening at once. It's not being cut in afterwards. I'm like, that is the coolest nerdy thing I have ever heard in my entire life. So you can't see them, but they're off in the corner doing their thing and you can hear it. So neat.
So if I can interject just a little bit, I think one of the interesting things about this whole, I'm not hooked right away, so I'm not interested. This is the difference now between releasing a movie and then having it disappear and then having it streaming now. So you can have people pick it up whenever they want to. And so if it creates enough buzz in the longer term, it could generate that viewership that they're looking for, make people come and want to watch it again. Because I'm not all the way through yet, wherever it needs to be, but it's going to be, I'm interested now in kind of going back and watching some of it again. Whereas, most of the other stuff out there right now, definitely not. I'm not doing that with Roots of Power. I can tell you that. And it's something that I'm, because again, that storytelling is great and it's going to generate some buzz. I've been telling people, the two of you have been telling people, oh yeah, you got to give it a watch. And then that happens enough with enough people will start watching it. Okay, I'll give it a chance. They said it was good. I'll give it a go.
I'm waiting for my check, Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, our friend Dave, he really was really disappointed with the season 8 of Game of Thrones, and so was really not interested in House of the Dragon. But I know I've been pushing him. Give it a watch. Give it a watch. Yeah, you know what? It's okay. They've actually they've picked up the torch and they've carried on, and so he's now started watching it and he's been enjoying it. So
Viserys.
that's what happens. Yeah.
All right. So, real quick, this is kind of an interesting article that I found in very regular research for the show here, and it was a list of canceled or reworked Disney Star Wars projects. So there's a number of things since Disney purchased Lucasfilm. There have been a number of things that have. There have been a number of false starts. There have been things that have started and then just been shut down. There have things that have been full on produced and been shut down as well. So I'm just going to skip through these really quickly. And then I want from each of you what you would like to have seen or would still like to see if they get a second chance at existence. So one, apparently there was an original version of Solo, a Han Solo movie that was supposed to be directed by the directors of the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street. That didn't happen, and we ended up with Ron Howard directing Solo instead. There was an original version of Star Wars Episode 7, which was Seven was the first of the sequel trilogy.
Force
correct,
Awakens.
Right?
Yep.
Force Awakens, correct. Was supposed to be Michael Arndt of Little Miss Sunshine, who worked on the project for about a year before J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan took over. Then there was something called Duel of the Fates. So the fellow behind Jurassic World was working on the final piece of the sequel trilogy. So this was supposed to be Episode 9. And again, kind of ended up dead in its tracks because Disney didn't like where it seemed to be going. And then J.J. Abrams took over again. We had, speaking of Game of Thrones, we had the original producers of Game of Thrones were supposed to be working on a Star Wars project. And that didn't end up going anywhere. And since then, they've been working on The Three Body Problem, which is an interesting series of sci-fi books, I think Chinese originally, and they're bringing that to a TV series. So that should actually be kind of neat, but they have not been involved in House of the Dragon, and probably better for it, because most people agree that the season 8 of Game of Thrones, which these guys were in charge of, felt a little rushed because they were going to be going off and doing their Star Wars project, which didn't end up happening. Here's one that I never knew about. There was the team behind Robot Chicken was supposed to be doing a Star Wars animated series, but apparently it was a little too irreverent for Lucasfilm's taste. And just from this screenshot, it's like, what is happening there?
That's a yes all day.
And so speaking of irreverent, in the Star Trek universe, we have Lower Decks, and they're plenty irreverent there. But it's different attitude toward their intellectual property, I suppose. We also had Josh Trank, the director of Chronicle, was going to be making a Star Wars movie as well. And also the same day it was announced that Gareth Edwards would be making a Star Wars movie, which eventually turned out to be Rogue One. Trank's film was going to star Boba Fett, and they'd even cut a trailer, but then Lucasfilm pulled the plug on that. Trank went on to work on one of the Fantastic Four movies as well, which apparently didn't go so well. Although never officially, it said Marvel's giving Fantastic Four another kick at the can in 2025 or something, 2026. James Mangold was, who's now working on Indiana Jones 5, had been working on a Boba Fett movie, which I guess got scrapped in favor of the TV series. There was supposedly an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie in development with the director of Billy Elliot, Stephen Daldry, that got put on hold as well. So it seems like maybe with the Disney Plus starting to gain traction and Disney really wanting to move people toward that streaming service with its recurring subscription revenue, a lot of these things went from movie concepts into series concepts. We have a bit more breathing room for the storytelling. And like Jamie says, the ability to hook people in and keep them around for weeks, if not months. And that's what's kept us in Disney Plus, is like alternating Star Wars and Marvel IP. Like, we can't quit because there's always something going on. We're almost through the list here. Apparently, Gareth Edwards was brought in, was credited for directing Rogue One, but then partway through production, they brought in Tony Gilroy as a fixer. And it seems like he fixed things pretty well, because a lot of us agree that Rogue One is pretty darn good. There was a director of Slate and Sweetheart, and who's also J.J. Abrams' assistant on Force Awakens, was supposed to be developing his own Star Wars project, but that never happened. I'm not that familiar with that fellow. There was a Rangers of the New Republic, which was a Gina Carano was supposedly going to be in that. So it would be featuring Cara Dune. Then she got let go. Again, Twitter. People should just stay off Twitter. They get themselves in trouble. Rian Johnson was going to be making his own Star Wars trilogy. I remember when hearing about that. And then Last Jedi had mixed reception at best, so that ended up getting canned. And then Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman, was supposed to be making a movie about rebel pilots, but
Rogue Squadron.
So that's not even on the calendar anymore.
Heartbreaking.
There's rumors that Zack Snyder was going to be directing a Star Wars story that was inspired by Seven Samurai, which was who's the director, the Japanese director's name is escaping me at the moment, who did Rashomon and Hidden Fortress, which was one of the inspirations for Star Wars. Like, why is his name escaping me? Ged, bail me out.
Can't help you here.
Oh, it's one of those things where it's like so obvious and it's something you've said 100 times over. And it's like, anyway, famous Japanese director, legendary Japanese director.
What did he direct?
Seven Samurai, Rashomon, Hidden Fortress, Colors. It'll come to me at 3 a.m. So apparently Zack Snyder had something that he was going to do that was he took inspiration from that called but it didn't go anywhere. And now apparently there's something called Rebel Moon coming out on Netflix, which could be just the de-Star Warsified version of that story. Then there's a video, apparently a Boba Fett video game that didn't go anywhere. And then lastly, this was something that was pre-Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm, but there was supposed to be something called Star Wars Underworld, a live-action TV show. It looks very
Kurosawa.
Akira. It looks. Oh, Akira Kurosawa. That's who I was thinking of. That director. Thank you.
Welcome.
But also, this Star Wars Underworld actually has Akira anime vibes to it, as well as Blade Runner vibes. Concept footage has been posted online. It's kind of interesting, a little weird, but that didn't end up going anywhere, which is kind of sad. So Star Wars Underworld. So anyway, I know that's a lot there, but Jamie, starting with you, was there anything of those things that we mentioned that tickled you? Would you want to see another Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy, given what he did with Last Jedi?
Yeah,
I suspect.
Honestly, again, it's not a situation of me looking at a concept or looking at a personality and saying, okay, I'm behind that. I want to be entertained. It just always comes down to that. So
but directors have pedigrees, like producers have pedigrees, and based on like Tony Gilroy, for example. So
did
any of these things give you interest, give you confidence?
No. Again, I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I think you have to, feel free to give something a chance or see what other people think of things. And if somebody has done a really good job, then great. Then I'll give it a watch. It's very much a meritocracy with me. So I'm not going to just watch something because, like, for instance, I am not a Marvel head or a DC person. So if something comes out and it's a great story, I'll watch it and I'll enjoy it. If it's not, I will turn it off. I'm not going to just watch it because it's a Marvel property. I'm not beholden to any of those things. I will give my eyeballs to somebody who has created a story that is entertaining to watch, and I can enjoy consuming that bit of entertainment. But no, any of those things, again, I would be happy to watch any of them if there was a good story behind it. If it is simply created, we have this idea because this happened here, and so writers, flesh out a story. I think that's the wrong kind of concept. I think you have to say, hey, somebody's created this really good story. Let's put it all together. And I think that's where, say, Andor has come in. Like, I wouldn't say, if somebody said to me, Kathleen Kennedy is producing a series based on a side character from Rogue One, prequel to it. I'm like, if I was to just look at that, I would say, no, that seems stupid. What a waste of time. But somebody has created a story and then fleshed it all out all the way through here and created, and great acting, all that kind of stuff, and it made it worth watching. So that's the only thing I can say is, no matter what anybody creates, make it entertaining. People will watch it. That's all.
All right. Speaking of contrarian takes, so I guess where I'm coming from with this is that people have they have a track record, and that can interest viewers and those who follow TV and movies, and people may get more or less excited depending on who's attached to a project, be it a producer, a director, an actor, the potential story. Oh, that seems interesting to me. I'd like to know more about this world, this character, and so on. Now, but point taken though, like it's great that you've got an open mind and are willing to, give anything a chance. There's a lot of people who won't, however, or may give more of a chance to something that's Star Wars. I think a lot of us, because we grew up with Star Wars, Indiana Jones, we were talking about last week, maybe we'll give something more of a chance, just like we were talking about with Andor. Some people won't even give it a chance because they're not a fan of the Star Wars universe. So,
yeah, are you a Spielberg fan, for instance?
Say again, sorry?
Spielberg fan?
Yeah.
Have you watched West Side Story?
I have not yet, but it's been on my list.
Yeah.
Came
on
out.
my list.
Because
I know it's
musicals are terrible.
I love musicals.
This is the thing.
Oh my
but
God,
Spielberg,
are you kidding me right now?
Spielberg, he did E.T., he did Jaws, he did all this stuff. So why haven't you gone to
The
watch
Jaws
it?
musical is epic.
Yeah.
I'm a big musical guy. I'm a closet musical guy.
I know, but this is but it's pretty easy to watch now. But you choose other stuff because, you know what? I don't think it's really going to be entertain me all that much. So.
All right, so I'm not a musicals guy, but I went and saw the Elvis movie because I liked what Baz Luhrmann did with Moulin Rouge and Strictly Ballroom, and even Romeo and Juliet, which was.
I was just going to say, if you forget Romeo and Juliet, I'm never ever coming on this ever again.
So I agree with you on that for sure. Artistic styling there, but yeah.
So like the involvement, the attachment of certain participants and or characters and or universes, I think does affect some people's decision making. Now, Ged, where do you land on this? Of those, dozen and a half potential stories, or changed up, in an alternate reality, maybe we may have seen a Rian Johnson trilogy, or a whimsical animated Star Wars, irreverent series. Any of those jump out at you? Something you would like to have seen, or would still like to see if it hasn't been totally canceled?
Yeah, I mean, I sit in between Jamie and the completely picky on this one. So I am of the same mind as you, Jamie, where I want to be entertained. Give me all of the Star Wars. If you give me 25 Star Wars property and 6 of them are trash, that's fine with me. However, I do want to see Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron come. I've been dying to see a story about Wedge Antilles. I know Tyler's all about that as well. Zach Johnson can do anything, and Zack Snyder can do anything. I'm going to watch it at this point because I think he's incredible. There are a couple in there that definitely made me kind of laugh. But I'm not against a Rian Johnson trilogy.
He directed Looper.
I'm of the mind that, and I got a lot of hate online for it. I got my first ever troll. Was it Jamie? I think that the Last Jedi started a very interesting topic that Star Wars is doing a really good job exploiting now, which was humanizing the Empire, which was showing that there was no specific good and evil. And people may not have loved how he did it. They might not have loved the story around it, but there were certain parts of The Last Jedi that I really enjoyed. And when I voiced that, I got some legitimate hate on Tyler's channel. I was like, wow, like you are attacking me.
You realize this is just a movie, folks.
Like you need to slow down, guys. This is a movie about spaceships and laser swords. But there was a lot of it that I liked because I think it started that conversation of that gray area. So I'd be cool with seeing him doing something as long as there's no one in it named Solo or Skywalker. Just give me a new story. And that's what Star Wars has been great at lately, is just giving me a new story. Mind you, if they could hand anything to Taika Waititi, it could be him sitting there reading the newspaper, and I will watch that thing 17 times over.
Wow. All right. Well, speaking of not so new stories, your pick of the week, Ged, is a 4K Blu-ray of Top Gun Maverick. What do you like so much about the movie and or this particular transfer? Yeah,
I will make this as quick as possible because I know we're getting up there in time. This was shot in native 6K format. I follow a guy online named Films at Home. and he is a big horror guy. He's a US guy. So I'm like, there's no way I can just be the person that loves this. I went and watched it. He basically quoted this as being, this is the movie you upgrade your entire system for. The HDR in it is virtually perfect. The Atmos track in it, because not all Atmoses are produced the same way, is brilliantly done to the point where vocals are beautifully up front, but you weren't getting hit with Atmos sound. It was just organically there. They found such a beautiful balance in this transfer. Obviously, the movie itself was incredible. This is going to be the quintessential 4K movie to demo for the next probably 5 years.
Like Matrix was for DVD back in the day.
Yeah. So just from a technological standpoint, it was just transferred brilliantly.
So on the blue-ray.com, which is a great source for detailed reviews of Blu-rays, their rating for the 4K video and the audio are both perfect scores, 5.0 and 5.0. Correct. Where it falls down is the regular full HD video quality, only 2.5. Interesting. And the extra is 4.5. So if you are a connoisseur of the high quality video and audio for a 4K setup, the numbers vary you out there, Ged.
And I mean, it's like I said, I mean, sometimes you watch movies, you could barely hear them speak, or they're doing too much with surrounds, and even when it's on disc, and this was just so well balanced. So well balanced.
Check it out. I got to see it twice in the theaters and still holds up. Jamie, you've got a bit of a different pick of the week for us this week. What is AppSheet?
This is technology-based stuff, but AppSheet is a low-code database development. Sounds pretty boring, but it's pretty interesting. It's something that you could take, just to give a quick example, you can take a Google spreadsheet or two Google spreadsheets and quickly import them into AppSheet and create instant applications that run both on desktop and phones. So it's really a very quick way of getting your data organized and useful. So you can have it in a spreadsheet, but if it's just in a spreadsheet, sometimes it doesn't really help too much. But putting it into an actual database application, and it's all Google based, and so free in many cases, and then small paid subscription for distributing it. And something that I've been learning myself for the last little bit, and ultimately it's a very effective way of dealing with data.
Very cool. It sounds like Zapier on steroids.
It is, and it's got it has AI built into it. You can have OCR put into it, everything like that. So you can take pictures of documents. You can sign signatures and save the signatures into the databases, and it's an extremely effective way of developing database applications and multiple spreadsheets all linked together within AppSheet, and they also just introduced their own native database format if you wanted to do that to make things more efficient. But for somebody like me who just needs data to be dealt with, it's a great bit of software.
Very cool. My pick of the week it's not stellar. It's a solid 3 out of 5, I thought, but it's kind of light on thinking of picks. I watched last week. We spoke about Werewolf by Night, which from Marvel, which was a fun Halloween watch. This was the other movie that we watched on Halloween night, and it is Morbius. So it is Marvel, but it's the Sony side of Marvel. So in the along with Spider-Man and Venom and the like. So it's about Dr. Morbius, played by Jared Leto, and he gets infected. His blood gets infected, and then he's like a vampire kind of guy.
So he's Marvel Batman. Cool, good talk.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it's kind of like a second or third tier character. It was not very well reviewed or received when it came out. So my expectations were super low, and as such, it's like, hey, wasn't bad. It was kind of interesting, kind of a character I'd never seen before, and perfect for Halloween viewing. And it had another actor in there who we've seen a lot of lately that I didn't realize was in it. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it was all right.
Okay.
If you're into Marvel stuff,
I love Marvel. I have not made the time to watch more.
Morbius.
All they keep saying online, they kept going, it's Morbin time. Like it just got the crap kicked out of this thing.
It did. So, super low. So that's the thing. They say happiness is expectations divided by reality. So
yeah,
my reality
maybe after
was
a few glasses of wine, I'll sit down and watch that one.
Exactly. And so now we're done with our picks. Projects. You're the only one. You've got a couple of things that you've been working on. You've been cranking out so many videos the last few weeks, Ged, not only on your channel, but in
Tyler's,
in collaboration with Tyler, Rogue Leader. So what have you been doing with Rogue Leader first off?
Doing indoor stuff with him every week. It's been a lot of fun. On our channel, on my channel, we've been doing, we did a wrap up for the Ring of Power. We also did weekly reviews on House of the Dragon. It was a lot of fun. Coming out in December, I have my trip with the Mach-E. I got a bunch of footage of, which I'm really looking forward to producing. I also have a follow-up from a 3-part series, actually from Tyler's house, where I kind of went over some stuff that I look for when kind of putting in home theater. Yep, right there. So I have a follow-up with his walls all done. He doesn't have speakers yet, but the walls are covered. So I kind of have a bunch of B-roll from there when we were visiting, and I'll be kind of getting that out in December as well. It was really cool to see it put together.
Awesome. We've been watching wrap ups. We're a couple episodes behind, but we've been watching almost all your videos with Tyler, and of course your other stuff. And my wife Stephanie made sure she wanted me to tell you that she was a big fan. So we watched them together.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I enjoy doing them. They don't get a lot of watches, but I love the show reviews.
Hey, you're in good company.
If you guys are ever around and you want to jump on, I would love to have either of you. The door is open. Tyler was saying he's happy to come on anytime. The guy's an encyclopedia of Star Wars. Like he's on another level of knowledge when it comes to Star Wars stuff. So if we're ever watching something at the same time and you want to jump on, I'd love to have you. It's very loose, very, very banter filled, as you're well aware of. And we definitely don't keep the language clean, and we drink. So it's a little bit of a different vibe.
So you can find your Ged's work at youtube.com/Ged Smythe. And it says Twitter at the bottom. Follow Fabulous Fix on Twitter. And I actually meant Facebook there, but people can follow you on Twitter at twitter.com/Ged R Smythe, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And of course, we can find Jamie at Jascrey, twitter.com/Jascrey, JASCREY. And you can find out more about Momentous, momentus.tv/links, a single link to rule them all. Oh, it's too bad we didn't get a chance to talk about Rings of Power tonight. We could have gone for another half hour. We'll have to watch your video.
It's almost midnight.
Someone's in the wrong time zone.
Right.
All right. Ed, thank you so much. Jamie, thanks again for coming. We hope your week is truly momentous.